They played us like a damn fiddle!
The last year on the internet's been an interesting one. There's been this little thing going on called Gamergate. Started in August of 2014, it still shambles along today. Now granted, it is a neutered former shadow of itself, but it's still alive and kicking. Now for those of you unfamiliar with what Gamergate is, it is a quest to save Vidya from the forces aligned against it. Now, this movement originally grew out of 4chan, specifically the V and poll boards. Now, I know there are going to be assert Redditors in the comments that are going to say, no, Jim, no, it was a magical confluence of all these different internet communities that came together. Bullshit. It started on fucking 4chan. Now, granted, Redditors and other websites in general joined in as time went on. Reddit in relation to the censorship that took place over Total Biscuit and his subforum, with 30,000 comments getting wiped out to protect the honor of Milady Zoe Quinn by a asshole moderator. And of course you had multiple other sites, Know Your Meme, The Escapist, Encyclopedia Dramatica, Funny Junk, Twitter, Tumblr. Everybody kind of jumped in on it. It became kind of a big thing for a while, and those first couple of months really had some momentum going. Now, for those of you who were around during this time, you'll remember an exodus that took place, and it was in relation to Gamergate. What ended up happening was there were threads every day on V and occasionally on poll that would get cycled through at incredible speeds. One would disappear because it would hit the bump limit, and immediately another one would start up. Well, after a while, the moderators and administrators of 4chan, specifically Moot, put a quash on this. He said, no more. Get the fuck off the site with this shit. I don't want you here. Now, he put it in a couple of different ways, and there were more events tied into this, but essentially he said, your Chinology, get the fuck off my website. And so there were a lot of users that were very angry. They didn't know where to go. So what are they going to do? Well, enter Hot Wheels. He says, you can use my website. I'm not really, for or against this, but it's free speech. You can make your own boards. You can use a site. You're all welcome here. And a host of people in Gamergate went to 8chan. So here you have it. You have this event, Gamergate, that basically splits off a segment of the community. They leave 4chan and they go to 8chan, where they can create boards and they can talk about this, and they're not getting censored by the mods, and they're not getting censored by Moot. As an interesting aside here, there was a lot of speculation about Moot and his motives for actually cutting off Gamergate. He was looking for venture capitalists. His two different previous endeavors had failed. Canvas didn't do well. He had an app for the, I believe it was the iPhone or the iPad, a painting program. Essentially, it was kind of like a Canvas app that didn't do as well as he wanted. And he needed venture capitalists, and this was kind of a way of appeasing them because they all knew each other and they all attended XOXO Fest. When this was going on, Moot actually was at XOXO Fest, and you had other people there, social justice warriors that were related to Gamergate because they were, a point of ire for Gamergate. People like Anita Sarkeesian and those kind of people. And people were looking at the situation, they're saying, holy shit, what's going on here? Why, Moot is associating with these people, we're arguing with these people, and now he's kicking us off the website. There was also the situation with Moot's girlfriend, who happened to be associated with Gawker. She worked for it, she had connections to it. You put all this together, and it looks bad for Moot. It looks like he had an ulterior motive, aside from thinking they're just Chinology 2.0, for kicking people off. But again, Hot Wheels saves the day. Everybody goes to 8chan and everything's good. And that's kind of the history as we know it, isn't it? That, Gamergaters were exiled from 4chan and they went into the open embrace of Hot Wheels at 8chan, and yay, everything's great. But what if that isn't actually the reality as it happened? What if the history we know is a false one? And what if there were people behind the scenes that were manipulating these events to their own profit? Well, if you give me a minute, I think I can paint you a picture that's probably going to piss you the fuck off.
You sold us out.
No, I sold you out, Tommy. I sold you out!
Now, this morning news broke that Moot had finally transferred ownership, that on September 21st, he was no longer the owner or administrator of 4chan, but it was now in the possession of a man by the name of Hiroyuki Nishimura. Now, for those of you unfamiliar with who Nishimura is, I'll let Moot explain it. He actually puts up a news article announcing this to the 4chan user base. Today, I am pleased to announce that Hiroyuki Nishimura, best known as the founder of 2channel, has taken my place as the owner of 4chan. Hiroyuki is a pioneer in the world of anonymous communities and can be thought of as the great-grandfather of 4chan. His creation of 2channel in 1999 sparked an era of anonymous-centric web culture in Japan that led to the creation of Futaba Channel, the site that inspired 4chan. None of us would be using 4chan today or potentially any anonymous image board if it weren't for him. I met Hiroyuki in 2011 and we became fast friends, bonding over our shared passion for creating and managing online communities. He is one of the few individuals with a deep understanding of what it means to provide a digital home for tens of millions of people for more than a decade. There is nobody more qualified than Hiroyuki to lead 4chan, and I can't think of a better person suited for the task. 4chan sits on the eve of two great milestones: its 2 billionth post and its 12th birthday. It has been a great privilege to serve as 4chan's founder and steward for almost 12 years. I can't wait to see what lays in store under Hiroyuki's experienced leadership. Well, this sounds fantastic. I mean, as Moot said, this is the great-grandfather of the anonymous Imageboard, and who better to hand over the reins of leadership and ownership than to this man? I mean, it could be worse. It could have been Condé Nast. It could have been Reddit's parent company. It could have been a whole host of different corporations or entities that would have gotten their hands on 4chan. And so from the perspective of the user base of 4chan, that's fantastic, right? Well, not necessarily, because you need to know a little bit of background about Hiroyuki and what happened with 2channel. In August of 2013, the service got hacked. Now, people on 2channel were actually able to register. They had their name, address, credit cards, information attached to 2channel, and this was released out into the archive. 30,000 people, or even more, were affected by this. But that wasn't the worst of it. It wasn't Hiroyuki's oversight and security that allowed this to happen. That wasn't the bad part of the story, even though that sucks. What was discovered afterwards was that Hiroyuki was sending other personal info of posters to companies outside of 2channel. He was selling their information, attaching a name, an address, an IP address to specific posts, to companies that data mine. He was using his own user base to make even more money than he was already making off the site itself. As you can imagine, people were extraordinarily pissed about this. But this is the man that Moot has now handed ownership of 4chan to. So you can probably imagine the reaction of posters on 4chan to the idea that a man who is now in charge has in the past sold user information to the highest bidder. Imagine all the people that post on Poll or V or any other part of the website. You've got viral marketers or government entities. Who knows who this man is going to sell information to? But one of the more interesting bits related to this whole thing is that even though Hiroyuki was the creator of 2channel, he wasn't the owner at the time that this took place. He had sold them in 2012 to Jim Watkins through Race Queen Incorporated. So who is Jim Watkins? Well, when you hear this story recounted, he's the hero. You know, Jim came in and he shut down fucking everything. He let go of staff. He secured the servers. He made sure that information wasn't still being data mined. Even though he owned the company for an entire year while this was happening, he was somehow completely unaware that information was being sold or that there were security flaws. No, that was all Hiroyuki. Jim is the hero. Now, that might seem suspicious to some people. How could he not know? How could he not be involved in that? How could he not be profiting off of it? He was the owner at the time this was going on. And yet his subordinate, the creator of this website, is somehow doing this behind his back without him ever knowing about it? It would seem suspicious. But no, Jim Watkins, he's the hero in this story. That's what people will tell you. So Jim Watkins, he must be off somewhere running 2channel, right? Well, another piece of news that you might have missed or you might not even be aware of was a thread that's taking place on an 8chan board called Operate. A poster had created a thread related to Jim Watkins. Now, why would they be talking about Jim Watkins on 8chan? How is that related to 8chan? Well, you should know Jim Watkins owns 8chan.
You set the team up?
Excellent deduction, Jill. That was Umbrella's intention anyway.
Now, it's been known for some time that 8chan and 2channel have a business relationship. This is something that Hot Wheels has spoken publicly about on Twitter and elsewhere. It was a coup. It was a way of showing that the site is growing. You know, they're going to be migrating their services. They're going to use their servers. It's a partnership. It's a relationship. The Operate thread, on the other hand, wants to know what kind of a relationship. Who exactly owns 8chan? Is it Hot Wheels? Is it somebody else? What is the nature of the relationship? Because they're concerned. They're concerned because Jim Watkins was the former business partner of Hiroyuki. You know, he eventually got site ownership and cleaned house. But nonetheless, Jim Watkins was there. He was there at 2channel. He was there with Hiroyuki when this data mining was going on. And so the poster is concerned. You know, are 8chan posters, is their information secure? Do we have to worry about a similar thing happening here? Well, at the very end of the thread, if you look, the owner of Operate comes in and he links to this. Who owns 8chan? NT Technology. Who owns NT Technology? Jim Watkins. It goes on to further explain. Okay, but how did Hot Wheels lose control of 8chan? With 8chan's increasing popularity and media attention, the American hosting company NT Technology took note and offered Hot Wheels an attractive hosting agreement. They would not shut down the site over abuse reports unless they were not acted on in a timely manner after being forwarded. They would give 8chan an entire rack of their data center, and they would do all of this for free so long as they were entitled to 60% of any profit 8chan would generate while being hosted by them. Since Hot Wheels believed 8chan was either many years from any profit, or that it would never make one at all, he jumped metaphorically at the idea. The offer put all the risk on NT Technology and would allow 8chan to continue as it was having a difficult time finding a host that would put up with the antics of the site's anonymous users. 8chan switched hosting providers due to differences in opinions over takedowns and content 5 times in the month of September 2014, but in the months following it, did not even switch once. However, the story doesn't end there. The original agreement dealt only with servers and bandwidth, but in January of 2015, everything changed. At the height of Gamergate, before it became largely focused on Reddit's Kotaku in action, SPJ Airplay, and its ultimate fizzling out, 8chan sustained a massive DDoS attack using the for-hire stressor from Lizard Squad. After that attack subsided, the domain register of 8chan's original domain, Internet BS, seized control of the domain and directed all users to a landing page advertising jailbait pornography. To bring the site back online, a new domain, 8chan.net, owned by Jim Watkins, was used. This was originally meant to be temporary, and at the time a lawyer in the Bahamas was contacted to take Internet BS to task. However, once the 8chan.co domain was retrieved, both the lawyer and world-renowned computer hacker Weave advised to make 8chan.co into a simple redirect, and keep 8chan.net as the domain for the real site, due to the increased respect for property rights inherent in the .com, .org, and .net domains, which are operated by American companies VeriSign instead of by the government of Colombia as 8chan.co was. And so Jim Watkins became the owner of the most immutable part of 8chan, its domain, along with the servers. However, he retained Hot Wheels as 8chan's administrator in charge of technical and community matters, and offered him jobs for pay doing such things as adding Okaki support to 2chan. So for those unaware, this is a clear definitive answer. Jim Watkins owns 8chan. There is no debate, it is his. And Hiroyuki now owns 4chan. So we go from having two sites controlled by two different people that look like this to this. The interesting thing though is that the two people who own these two image boards, Hiroyuki and Watkins, were business partners.
Kane, tell me you've not turned traitor.
Don't look at me.
So what a weird crossroads we find ourselves at. If you examine the past year, and you look at where we are now, you find some strange occurrences happening. Moot is desperate for money. Every single thing that he has done has failed. He has an established website, 4chan. It has a large user base, and it is a gold mine for the right person that can get in there and exploit it. And here comes Hiroyuki, somebody he says he had a relationship with going back to 2011. This is a relationship that spans the time that Hiroyuki was selling user information, that he was data mining his own user base. And if you time that up with some of the shifts in 4chan and its policies, you'll see some striking similarities. There was a post that kind of circulated for years and years talking about how Moot was now working with the government and he was giving over user information, or Moot was selling user information or implementing CAPTCHA for other reasons simply than site security or limiting spam posts. Well, when you look at what Hiroyuki was doing, what kind of influence was there? And here's Moot. All his different ventures have failed. Canvas is not making money. His application is not making money. He needs somebody to come rescue it. On the other side, you have Hot Wheels. And he's repeatedly stated, if you go reread that, or if you just look at the things he said publicly over the last year, that 8chan's growth is directly related to Gamergate. With the sudden influx of people coming in, he needed to expand the servers. He needed to be able to accommodate more and more users. Well, here comes Jim Watkins to save the day. You can use my servers. I'll not even charge you for them. Just give me a small piece of your ad revenue. And then, mysteriously, 3 months into Gamergate, at its height, when it's getting the most media press that it can be getting, when people are talking about it left and right, and when 8chan is associated most with it, the site starts to get hit over and over and over and over and over again. And guess who comes to save the day once more? Jim Watkins. Hey, let me take that site off your hands. I'll keep you on as an administrator. I'll pay you. But, I'll take all the burden. So these two people that had this business relationship, running one of the biggest boards in Japan, that sold user information now find themselves in control of the two biggest boards in America? And that doesn't strike anybody as slightly suspicious or a little unnerving. Would it be far-fetched to say that perhaps two different individuals who have a previous relationship see a business opportunity in an event taking place and seek to maybe exploit it or poke at it from different angles to try to get the best deal they can? Put a little pressure on Moot, make him sell that site. Put a little pressure on Hot Wheels, make him sell that site. And we can set up shop in America and we can do the same fucking thing we did in Japan to an entirely new group of people. In a country which has an oppressive surveillance state, where they are desperate for information. Imagine the profit you could turn that. If you willingly worked with something like Prism, if you willingly worked with organizations like the NSA, what better way to make fucking money? Oh my god, talk about gangbusters. It has always been the fear of people on anonymous image boards that the administrators or the site owners were going to fuck them. And now you see the biggest image board around and one of the biggest alternatives to it, both under the ownership of people who have done precisely that, fucked people for profit.